Hey guys, Alaskan Nomad here. Just wanted to make another one of these videos before I finally just give in and realize that I'm not going to change anybody with my opinions on this. So, I just read through the book again, just to kind of refresh and make sure that, I'm not just banking on a version of him that I read so many years ago, and maybe I don't know him as well as I thought either. I do not stand corrected, I will say, because after reading through the first book, I still haven't got a chance to read through Arctic Incident or Eternity Code yet either, just to make sure that I'm getting a lot of the references correct. There is a lot of hints and influences that suggest the version of Artemis that we see on the silver screen. Now, granted, he is not the skinny, pale, vampiric kid that we do remember from the books. Trust me, I was a little off-put to see that. But, on the other hand, with this exposition scene, seeing him surfing, hovering, moving around on his hoverboard, there are a couple things I want to point on that. Number one, if you actually pay attention, there is nobody else in these scenes, which still hints the fact that Artemis does not trust anyone else. He has very hard trust issues. And that is actually very apparent because despite how rushed it feels, he does actually take a while to begin to trust Holly. And trust is one of his biggest things. But he still comes across as being more active as a Sherlock Holmes, and I'm talking Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes style. This version of Artemis, I'm okay with seeing. I know a lot of you guys aren't, but I like seeing that because you get to see him being active as well as being extremely brilliant. There's a lot there. And again, you can, in the sequels, you can easily allude that now that he's starting to become a criminal mastermind, he starts becoming a little too fond of this criminal mastermind lifestyle, and it does kind of get to his head a little. That is how you can really start applying the Artemis Fowl that people are really knowing and loving. He stops being so active and starts focusing more on his computer. There are ways around this. There are ways to repair this, but we have to give the chance for a sequel to do that, or just let it rot. Or get Disney to demand Disney to release a retcon version, kind of like the Snyder Cut of Justice League, and so on and so forth. Release some of those things. Release the Ho Chi Minh City scene, because that is a huge core aspect. I know that they said that I don't know if this is going to confuse people. No, this is actually going to establish a lot, and fans of the book are going to be happy to see that in the movie. Now, trying to get back on track here. The Artemis Fowl in the books seems like a villain, and he does come off as very crude at times. But if you actually do pay attention, he does have a soft side. That soft side you see constantly throughout in two scenes in particular in the books that I want to very much mention on. And these include the mother, which of course was not in the movie because it was just way too difficult to film that and very traumatizing. Even though she was only in two scenes in the book, it still is very troubling, and it really can get a lot of problems filming scenes like that with a child. If this was adults, it'd be a totally different story, but with children, it is a very delicate situation. You guys have to understand that. But these two scenes, both in ways do have to do with the mother. When he comes back, actually no, 3 scenes. Yes, 3 scenes. So, scene number 1, the very first scene with Artemis and his mother. After coming back from Ho Chi Minh City getting the book, he drops everything because he wants to check on the progress of his mother. Now, if this guy was evil and he didn't care about his mom, and it just wanted to make sure, social services wouldn't take him or anything, as the epilogue suggests, he wouldn't really care too much to constantly check up on his mother's progress, nor would he want to be bothered by something like that. It would make more sense in that context for Butler to ask, wouldn't you want to check on your mother? And he goes, I have more important things to do, Butler. Just you go check on her, or have Juliet give me a progress report or something. I got to get to this book. That would suggest that he actually does not care about anything. He doesn't even care about social services. None of that bothers him. It's just, she's just a means to an end. All it is, she's just there to make sure that I don't go into foster care. That's not what we get. Instead, we get somebody who cares, and we get somebody who is very much in love with his mother. He just hates seeing her the way that she is, and it breaks him seeing her in that context. But he is still the manipulative sense, but you also see the caring sense in that scene, because he tries to warp her dementia. It's a little kind of cruel, but it's more nice than it is cruel, because he's just like, oh yeah, no, that servant is terrible. I believe Butler has a sister Juliet. She's right there. Yeah, let's bring her in. Yeah, sure, whatever. Whoever's better than that woman. Shows a lot more of a caring side. Secondly, when Artemis comes back from kidnapping Holly, Juliet comes in panicking and says, "Your mother, she says your father's back." And he drops everything. He even curses at himself for giving up hope. This hope, because he was watching for the first year. He had the CNN constantly updated and constantly running just to make sure that he would get any kind of hint, any kind of sign, any form of hope that his father was still alive. And then after that year, when he was devoting into the book, he finally said, "Nope, I finally have given up. It's over. It's a hopeless mission." And this is where a lot of his villainous side comes from, is that giving up that hope and realizing that it is now up to him to lead the family. Now, with this in mind, he realizes that it's not going to be enough to just take her to a therapist. It's not going to be enough to put her on the right kind of drugs. And even the healer in Ho Chi Minh City would not be enough and would not have the kind of power, especially with the drunkenness and everything, just would not be able to heal his mom. No, it required something a little bit more specific. It required a wish. Therefore, he needed the gold in order to be able to do that, because it's also in how he asked the question. How much is a wish worth? I do got a whole ton of gold, so because he was using the gold as a bargaining chip. That was the whole point, was to get the gold as a bargaining chip. Yes, cause a cross-species war, and that was, a bit of a bonus, and that was going to help launch him into the criminal empire, but it was also because he needed to use that to do this, and he knew that if he just asked a fairy for a bunch of gold to do that, or, just did something of that nature, it wouldn't get the results. He wanted to get a Stockholm Syndrome style, where she cared just enough to grant his wish. Finally, when everything is said and done, he runs to his mother. Runs to her. He doesn't just go, cool, plan worked, awesome. Thank goodness, man, that was a bit of a sigh of relief there. No, he even was saying, I can't tell Butler and the others about my wish, it's going to come across as weakness. He doesn't want people seeing that soft side of him. This soft side, we do see a lot in there, and especially when you consider the fact that he was actually a little bit more panicky, if I remember correctly, in the Arctic incident. He does actually kind of flip a little bit, and he's constantly searching everywhere to try and find him. This giving us a 3-day time frame instead of the year that it took him and the 4 months to translate the book. Instead, he translates the book within 2 days and figures all this out instantly, breaking down the Irish blessing, which may or may not have been in the books. I still haven't read through Arctic Incident again, but he still breaks down a lullaby, something that just an average kid would not be able to do, but a criminal mastermind, a genius, definitely would. He then breaks down, gets the Irish blessing, gets the book that is Dad's journal, his diary. He also is constantly translating, and if you pay attention, there is on the screens various different languages that are also depicting the scene in which he is translating the book. When he also says the line, it's not just a language, it's encoded. That is a hint of the entire chapter to the book. And also, speaking of the book, the very first thing that he translates, the very first section of paragraphs, I believe it's the first or second paragraph, I'm not looking at it right now, but that is the exact spell that Holly uses to activate the Aculus, which is also kind of significant that the Aculus is a golden acorn, symbolic of the ancient ritual. Now, granted, it is not the fact that she takes the acorn and plants it into the ground and does it that way, sure, but it's still a golden acorn, and it is still a magic spell that is used in order to bring the father back. It is still paying a lot of attention to detail, but yes, they changed a lot. So, I understand if you didn't like it because they changed too much, but understand that they did actually pay a lot of attention to the source material, and they did try to put as much of that onto the screen as they could, combining several books. But again, with the fact that they could not use the mother, and therefore had to focus on the father, that required using the Arctic incident. Hints of Eternity Code, but we can still use that. We can still easily use the plots of Arctic Incident and still use the plot of Eternity Code. There are still ways to do this, but again, guys, please, let us either get Disney to fix this, or at least give them enough back from the ratings, from whatever, to get the budget that they need to make a sequel so that they can improve upon this. But if you let it sit now, it is going to sit for at least 7 years. That's how contracts work. They made the movie, now they hold on to it for 7 years. There's nothing going to happen if we don't let anything happen. But get them to fix a lot of this, and especially repair a lot of this in the sequel, and it gets our story back on track. It's a little bit jarring, the first movie, but it still pays a lot of attention to the details. Not the way that we thought, but it does. So please, guys, I really, really do hope that at least one person watches this and gets a much better feel from this movie and is able to give it a second chance and go, alright, I see where you're coming from. They changed a lot, yes, but they did keep to a lot more than I'm willing to give them credit. I'm okay with that, so long as I can at least get people to stop hating on this movie. Do I wish it was better? Yes. Do I wish that we got the Owen Colfer book? Yes. But budgets would not have allowed for that. And again, the traumatization of Angeline Fowl was too much for them to consider. So they had to get rid of that. They had to get rid of the drugs because Disney doesn't do drugs. They had to remove a lot of things. And even 20th Century Fox, they're not really... They've been messing up a lot in the past, so they were not too keen to do that this time around. So look, there are... I keep saying so look. There are a lot of changes. But there's a lot there. And I really think that they could, in essence, make something better out of this. But please just give them the chance to do that. Don't just let this rot. Please, I am begging you. Don't let it rot. But that I'm not telling you be silent. I'm telling you speak out to Disney. Get them to fix this in the sequel. Get them to make a retcon version. Get them to do something about it. Just don't let it rot. Please. I've waited 20 years for this movie to finally come out. I really don't want to wait that much longer. It is not as simple as, oh, Disney failed on it, so somebody else can just take it up. No. Disney owns the rights to Artemis Fowl for the next 7 years, at least. So let's do something with that. Please, guys. I love you all. I really do. And I really, really, really hope that somebody's going to listen.